Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today is my last comparison video that I feel like making. If you've been watching my videos, I have been making comparisons to different bikes against my 2013 Victory that I bought. And these bikes were just basically bikes that were within my sphere of decision making. And I thought just for fun, I would make these videos to compare what those bikes are versus what my Victory is and why I ended up choosing my Victory over any of those other bikes. And so that's the same thing that's happening today with the Kawasaki Nomad. I guess to introduce the Kawasaki to you, the Vulcan Nomad, the Vulcan series of bikes have been around since 1984. And in fact, my first bike was a Vulcan 800 Classic, had that for about a year. And then the next bike I bought after that was a Vulcan 900 Classic, had that for about a week, got into an accident, and then I was out of riding and recovering and all that for about a year. And then the next bike I got after that was my Vulcan S. And I had that bike for about 3 years, and that's the bike I started this channel on. And so now I'm the owner of a Vulcan, of a Victory Crossroads. So during the time that I was looking at bikes to buy, the Vulcan series of bikes I really liked. And there was a pair of Vulcans that popped up, one of which I just described to you as the Nomad, and we'll go into that later. And the other is the Vaquero, the Vulcan Vaquero. Now, I did ride that bike, and I do have a video about my experience on that bike, and I will post that down below in the description. But today I want to focus on the Nomad itself, and in particular, the 2014 Nomad. And the reason why I want to focus on the 2014 Nomad is because it was the only bike in the series of the Nomads that were being made that came with the K-Act 2 braking system. And the K-Act 2 braking system, for those who don't know, is a ABS system where it links the front and the rear brakes together. So if you get into a panic situation and you mash too much on the front brake, it applies an appropriate amount of rear brake to balance you out and hopefully keep you from taking a dive. Same thing with the rear brake. If you press too hard on the rear brake, it will automatically apply an appropriate amount of front braking pressure. Now, that's a great feature. I personally like that feature. It's not a deal breaker for me if a bike doesn't have it. I just want ABS, honestly, because linked brakes are nice and they're a great safety feature, but they don't replace proper braking technique. You should be out in a parking lot. You should be practicing applying both front and rear brakes in an appropriate manner as to stop you safely and quickly. And that's basically called progressive braking. You don't grab anything hard. You apply pressure and squeeze quickly, firmly, but steadily, not sharp pulls. Anyways, that's really for someone better suited to teach motorcycles than myself, but that's what it is. The way a linked brake should work, it should work quietly in the background without you ever noticing it, but it should be there in case you do need it. And that's all I'll say about that, honestly. The other thing I really like about the 2014 Nomad is its color scheme. It's got this flat ebony on top of a flat crystal pearl white. And that black and white, that speaks to my inner soul. That speaks to my inner being. I tend to be a black and white thinker. I tend to steer away from nuance and degrees. And so when I see the black and white Nomad, it speaks to my inner being. Oh my God, that's stupid. But seriously, I like the black and white. I really like the clean, clear black and white look of the bike. It's just, it looks good. It's not fancy. It's not flashy. It's just the way I like it, the way I like things to be, more stripped down than not. Now, looking at my Victory Crossroads, you're like, it's not very stripped down. And you're right, it's not. It's got a lot more chrome bling to it than I would normally gravitate to, but it's growing on me. It is growing on me. So anyway, the other thing about the 2014 Nomad is 2014 is the last year that they made the Nomad. I really wish they would bring that bike back, but I don't see that ever happening. At least I don't. I just don't. I don't see it happening. So in the Vulcan 1700 series, they had the three big bikes. They had the Nomad, the Vaquero, and the Voyager. Nomad is now gone as of 2014, so that leaves the Vaquero and the Voyager. And this is also a thing that is in consideration. I mean, when you're buying a bike that's no longer in production, you begin to question, will I be able to find parts for this? And with the Kawasaki, that is a fairly easy question to answer. The Nomad, the Vaquero, and the Voyager all use the same engine, all use the same transmission. My guess is they're using the same frames even, a lot of the same electronics. So I don't think you would ever have a problem finding parts for the Nomad if it broke down. Aftermarket-wise, Kawasaki's always been weak on that. You can find upgrades and you can find people who have modded their bikes, and so I'm sure there's a wealth of knowledge out there if you're willing to look for it. But just on the face of it, when you compare it to like Harley-Davidson first, Indian second, there's not a whole lot of aftermarket support for these bikes, and that's sad. That really is sad. And so anyway, that's my introduction to that. So I think at this point, we'll look at the stats, and I'll run down the basic stats like I have been with all these previous videos. And I'll compare it to the Crossroads, and we'll see how well they compare. So here we go. In 2014, the Nomad cost $17,499. That's very comparable to the Victory Crossroads, the 2013, which was $17,999. $500 difference on MSRP is really negligible. The Nomad came with a 103 cubic inch displacement engine. And like I said, that's the same engine that they're running on the Vaquero and the Voyagers today in 2025. They have not changed that engine at all. The 2013 Crossroads came with a 106 cubic inch displacement engine. So your 103 versus a 106. What does that mean in horsepower and torque? It means the Nomad had 82 horsepower versus the Nomad Victory's 88. The Nomad had 108 foot-pounds of torque, while the Victory Crossroads had 105. Again, there's differences, but they're not huge. This next one is where the difference gets bigger. The Nomad is a fully liquid-cooled V-twin versus the Crossroads air and oil cooled. Stop. For some people, this is a deal breaker. Liquid cooled is everything. It generally means a longer lasting engine. It generally means, for Indian anyway, it means you're going to make more horsepower, more torque with less effort. It means, different things. And some people will absolutely gravitate towards a liquid cooled engine before they go to an air cooled or an air oil hybrid cooled engine. So for some people, that's a big deal. Moving on, they both have 6-speed transmissions. They both have toe shifts. They both belt driven. And their brakes, again, super similar. They both have 11.8 dual disc brakes up front, single 11.8 inch disc in the back. Both have ABS standard. The difference between the two is Nomad is a linked ABS, whereas Victory is not. And now, as far as storage goes, I could not find hard numbers on the Nomad storage capacity. All I found was, quote, nearly 10 gallons of storage per bag. So between 9 and 10 gallons, so between 18 and 20 gallons total storage versus 21 gallons on the Victory Crossroads. Fuel. The Nomad has a 5.3 fuel tank, whereas the Victory Crossroads has a 5.8 gallon fuel tank. And I could not find a reliable dry weight for the Nomad, but its wet weight is 183 pounds. The dry weight for the Victory is 772 pounds, and without finding a reliable wet weight for the Victory, I had to guesstimate with oil and fuel weights that brought it up to an estimated 815 pounds. So this was actually a surprise to me, actually, in all reality. I did not expect the Victory and the Nomad to be so equally paired with one another. And they are. They're very close to being paired with one another. The biggest differences, like we saw, was liquid cooled and linked brakes. Honestly, that's the two big things. There are some other minor differences, sure, but as far as functionality goes, I'd say those would be the two big things that separate the two bikes. So why didn't I pick a Nomad? I like Kawasaki. I've owned 3 of them already, and I already said how much I love the color and the simplicity of this bike. So why am I owning a Victory and not a Nomad? Well, the simple explanation is there wasn't a Nomad for sale at the time that I was looking to buy a bike. The thing about the 2014 Nomad is it's getting harder and harder to come by because people are not giving these bikes up easily. When I first started looking, you could find a handful of Nomads any given month of the year. And I can still find a handful of older Nomads prior to 2014. But to find that specific Nomad, the 2014, it's getting very difficult to do. And so, honestly, had there been an available Nomad, I might have taken it up before I took the Victory, to be quite honest. The Victory became my choice when there was no Nomad available. And so, as I've done before, I'm going to throw up here a little short B-roll video. I went to Cycle Trader today as of making of this video, and I wanted to see if there was a Nomad up for sale, and there was. I put in all the proper, filters and all that, and came up with one Nomad by a private seller down in Florida. And would I have bought this? Probably not. Mainly because private sellers don't excite me that much. And also, this guy's speaking to me all caps, no sentence structure at all, and has just a scant few pictures. So none of that really points to being something that I'm going to run headlong into. If I was dead set on a Nomad, I would have waited. I think I would have passed this one up. Now, could I have done that? Yeah, sure, I could have done that when I didn't see one for sale when I wanted one. But, there's a part of me that wanted to own an American V-twin, but I didn't want to get raked over the coals price-wise like American V-twins tend to do. So that left me with one choice, really, and that's a Victory. And, I found one that I liked, a very nice color scheme, a dealer that was willing to get it to me and help me get through the process of buying from out of state and all that kind of stuff. No big deal there. And so the price was right, So now, as far as logistics go for the Kawasaki, I do have a Kawasaki dealership that's much closer to me than an Indian dealership. So that would have went in the Kawasaki Nomad's favor had there been one for sale when I was looking. But again, it wasn't there, so I bought the Victory. And that's how the Victory took the Victory. The Nomad was just a no-show. And again, like I said, it's not the fact that the bike is a bad bike. In fact, I think it's rather the bike is such a good bike, people just are not giving them up. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and end this video. And I'll close out by saying this. Every bike that I did in these comparison videos are good bikes. I do not think that any of them are a bad choice. They all came with the basic things that I was looking for: belt drive, 6-speed transmission, ABS, cruise control. They all have that. Some bikes, like the BMW, came with quite a bit more, but it comes with a bigger price tag to go with it. In the end, do I think, had I picked any of those other bikes, would I have been hurt? No, probably not. Probably not. I just chose the Victory for the reason why I did. Logistics of a dealership, and the price was just absolutely right. You can't, it's so hard to find a big bore American V-twin for, essentially $5,000 that's not, tore up. So, I went with what I went with because it's what I liked. Next time, who knows? I might end up with a Nomad if the price is right. I don't know. And I guess another question would be, would I have bought a Vaquero instead? I mean, I love the Vaquero. If you watch my video, it comes down to the fact that I really liked how well managed the V-twin in the Vaquero is, which is the same V-twin in the Nomad. So riding the Nomad wouldn't have been totally foreign to me. The Vaquero is just a really nice bike. I've loved the Vaquero for many years, and basically because it's a simple bagger, has everything you need, nothing you don't, and the dashboard all analog, and it just reminds me of that old school hot rod dash. In fact, I tell many people, when I get behind the Nomad and I look at the dashboard, it just reminds me of my dad's '69 Mustang when I was a wee one. And so it hits that nostalgic for me that no other bike can really hit. So why didn't I buy a Vaquero? Well, oddly enough, it's the dashboard that's the reason why I didn't buy a Vaquero. I sit in a car to and from work. I got a dashboard in my face, 2 hours a day plus. And, when I get on a bike and there's no dashboard there and it's just a simple gauge and a fender and open road in front of me and everything is just right close, that's a nice change. I just am not ready for a full fairinged bike with a dashboard in my face on my bike. I'm just not there yet. I imagine someday I will be there, but today's not that day. So with that, I think this will be the last video that I make of the comparisons. In fact, I know it is. And the next video will be a walk around on my bike. When that video comes out, I don't know. Maybe a week, maybe 2, maybe 3. Depends on what the weather does here. The weather today was absolutely stunning, by the way. But there's a lot of ice and still debris in the roads, and I'm not into it. But like I said, I don't know when the next video after this is coming out, a week or 2. So a lot of it depends on what happens on my end and what the weather looks like. But until then, you all be good, and see you later.